The awakening the stars had always been silent to humanity, until the day Dr. Sarah Chen heard them whisper. She was working the night shift at the Atacama Desert Observatory, scanning deep space frequencies that most of her colleagues considered dead channels. The coffee had gone cold hours ago, and her eyes burned from staring at the cascading data streams on her monitors. Then, at 3:47 a.m. local time, everything changed. The signal wasn't random cosmic background radiation. It wasn't a pulsar or a quasar or any natural phenomena in their databases. It was structured, mathematical, purposeful. Sarah's hands trembled as she isolated the frequency and ran it through the translation algorithms. What emerged made her blood freeze. Earth was being catalogued. Sector designation 7749, Delta, third planet from local star, carbon-based biosphere. Primitive electromagnetic emissions detected, intelligence level, pre-space flight, resource classification. Category 7, mining authorization pending council approval. Sarah stared at the screen, her mind struggling to process what she was reading. Someone out there was discussing Earth like it was an empty lot up for development. She grabbed her secure phone and dialed a number she'd hoped never to use. The emergency protocol her government contact had given her years ago, just in case SETI ever found something that couldn't wait for peer review. 12 hours later, Sarah found herself in a windowless room beneath the Pentagon, surrounded by faces she recognized from news broadcasts. President Elena Vasquez sat at the head of the table, her usually composed expression showing cracks of barely contained panic. Defense Secretary Harrison looked like he'd aged 10 years since morning, and her brother, Admiral Chen Wei, sat across from her with the same analytical expression he'd worn since childhood when facing impossible problems. "Tell them what you told me," President Vasquez said quietly. Sarah activated her laptop and displayed the translated communications she'd intercepted over the past 18 hours. The room fell silent as the scope of humanity's situation became clear. They weren't alone in the universe, and their new neighbors had already decided humanity's fate without bothering to introduce themselves. The Zephyrians, as they called themselves, were conducting a systematic survey of the Orion Arm. They'd been watching Earth for decades, monitoring human technological progress with the detached interests of scientists studying bacteria. Their reports painted humanity as a curious but ultimately insignificant species, worth nothing more than the rare Earth elements buried beneath their feet. Mining authorization approved. Zephyrian Engineering Corps to begin preliminary extraction. Operations. Native population to be relocated to Reservation Zone 12, on the fourth moon of Kepler-4, 4b. Estimated extraction timeline, 847 standard cycles. Admiral Chen Wei leaned forward. "How long is a standard cycle?" Sarah checked her calculations. Based on the stellar reference points in their communications, roughly equivalent to 3 Earth years. They're planning to strip mine our planet over the next 2,500 years. The silence that followed was broken by Defense Secretary Harrison's bitter laugh. 2,500 years. Hell, at least they're not in a hurry. "They don't consider us a threat," President Vasquez said, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "To them, we're no different from any other animal they'd relocate before beginning a construction project." Over the following weeks, as more intercepted communications revealed the true scope of the Galactic Council's plans, something unprecedented happened. Ancient enemies set aside their differences. Nations that had been at war for generations suddenly found common ground. The prospect of extinction has a way of clarifying priorities. Secret meetings were held in abandoned subway tunnels beneath major cities. Scientists shared research across previously impermeable national boundaries. Military leaders who'd spent careers preparing to fight each other began coordinating defensive strategies against an enemy none of them truly understood. Sarah found herself at the center of it all. Her observatory converted into humanity's primary listening post. Every day brought new intelligence about the Zephyrians and their technology. They used quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication across galactic distances. Their ships could fold spacetime to travel faster than light. Their smallest mining drones contained more computing power than Earth's most advanced supercomputers. By any rational assessment, humanity didn't stand a chance. That changed on a rainy Tuesday in October, when the first Zephyrian survey ship descended from orbit and landed in the Sahara Desert. It was a sleek, crystalline structure about the size of a shopping mall, humming with energy that made the sand beneath it glow. Within hours, automated mining probes began emerging from the ship, sampling soil and rock formations with mechanical precision. The ship's crew numbered exactly 7. Sarah knew this because she'd been monitoring their communications since the moment they'd broken atmosphere. The Zephyrians spoke about Earth the way humans might discuss renovating a house, casual, matter-of-fact, certain of their superiority. That certainty became their first weakness. Commander Marcus Torres led the team that infiltrated the mining site. He was a career soldier who'd cut his teeth in urban warfare, someone who understood that superior technology meant nothing if you didn't respect your enemy's ability to adapt. His team moved through the desert using tactics perfected in 20 years of asymmetric warfare, approaching the Zephyrian ship with the patience of hunters, stalking prey they couldn't afford to miss. The aliens never saw them coming. Their sensors were calibrated to detect advanced technology, spacecraft, energy weapons. They weren't looking for humans crawling through sand dunes with stolen mining charges and jury-rigged electromagnetic pulse devices. The attack lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, the Zephyrian ship was a smoking ruin, its crew dead, and its mining drones scattered across 50 square miles of desert. More importantly, humanity had its first samples of genuine alien technology. The retaliation was swift and brutal. 3 days after the Sahara incident, orbital bombardment turned downtown Los Angeles, Beijing, and London into radioactive craters. The message was clear: resistance would not be tolerated. But the Zephyrians had miscalculated. Instead of breaking human morale, the attacks had the opposite effect. Across the planet, populations that had been paralyzed by the scope of the threat suddenly found their voices. If Earth was going to die, it would die fighting. Sarah watched the global uprising unfold from her new command center, a repurposed coal mine in West Virginia that served as humanity's primary intelligence hub. Cities that had been abandoned after the orbital strikes became laboratories where engineers worked around the clock to reverse engineer Zephyrian technology. The aliens' quantum processors were integrated into human computers, creating hybrid systems that could crack Zephyrian encryption in real dash time within months. Humanity learned to turn the aliens' own technology against them. Mining drones were reprogrammed to serve as weapons. Communication arrays were hacked to feed false information to Zephyrian command structures. Most importantly, the wreckage of that first ship in the Sahara provided the key to understanding how Zephyrian spacefold drives worked. Asterisk. Admiral Chen Wei stood in what had once been NASA's Mission Control Center, now converted into the command bridge of humanity's most desperate gambit. The walls were lined with screens showing real-time feeds from resistance cells across the globe. In the center of the room sat a single alien device, a crystalline cube about the size of a briefcase, that hummed with barely contained energy. "Are you certain this will work?" President Vasquez asked from the secure video feed. Chen Wei looked at his sister, who was monitoring the alien device's quantum signature. Sarah nodded once, her expression grim but determined. "The calculations are solid," she said. "The Zephyrian scout ships use autonomous navigation systems. If we can hack their spacefold network, we can redirect one of their vessels to land anywhere we choose instead of returning to their fleet." It was an insane plan. They were going to hijack a starship using technology they barely understood, operated by beings whose psychology was completely alien to human experience. The margin for error was essentially zero, and failure would likely result in Earth's complete annihilation. Chen Wei activated the hijacked communication array. "All stations, this is command. Operation Prometheus is a go. I repeat, Prometheus is a go." Across the planet, resistance teams simultaneously activated modified Zephyrian mining charges they'd placed at carefully calculated points around the globe. The explosions created a specific pattern of electromagnetic interference that masked Earth's quantum signature just long enough for Sarah to inject her hacked navigation code into the next Zephyrian scout ship approaching the planet. For agonizing minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then, high above the atmosphere, something that looked like a falling star began to descend toward the coordinates Chen Wei had programmed. Not toward the Zephyrian base in the Sahara, but toward the abandoned airfield in Nevada where humanity's best pilots waited with stolen alien technology integrated into modified fighter aircraft. The Zephyrian scout ship landed exactly where Sarah's calculations had predicted. Its crew of 5 emerged, expecting to conduct routine surveys of mining progress. Instead, they walked into a carefully prepared ambush that left them unconscious within seconds. Victims of modified human stun weapons, reverse-engineered from their own technology, for the first time since the invasion began. Humanity had captured an intact alien vessel and crew. Sarah stood in the scout ship's control center, her hands moving across crystalline interfaces that responded to her thoughts, as much as her touch. The ship's computer contained star charts for thousands of systems, technical specifications for Zephyrian military technology, and most importantly, real-time communication logs with the Galactic Council. What she found there changed everything. Earth wasn't unique. Across the galaxy, dozens of worlds had been classified as Resource Category 7 over the past 1,000 years. Species after species had been relocated or eliminated to make way for Zephyrian mining operations. Humanity was just the latest in a long line of civilizations deemed too primitive to matter. But there was something else in those files. References to other species that had resisted Zephyrian expansion. The Kondorians had fought a guerrilla war for 30 years before finally being subdued. The Helix Collective had actually destroyed several Zephyrian mining fleets before being overwhelmed. Most intriguingly, there were scattered reports of human-like species in distant systems that had never been successfully conquered, whose resistance had cost the Zephyrians more resources than their planets were worth. "Marcus," Sarah called to Commander Torres, who was examining the captured Zephyrian weapons. "Look at this." She displayed the tactical reports on the ship's main screen. Torres read them in silence, his expression growing more thoughtful with each line. "They're not invincible," he said finally. "These other species gave them real trouble. The Zephyrians won through superior numbers and resources, not because their tactics were perfect. Sarah nodded and looked at the timeline. Every successful resistance campaign lasted longer than the Zephyrians expected. They're used to quick victories against technologically inferior opponents. Extended conflicts drain their resources and political will. Chen Wei's voice crackled through the ship's communication system. Sarah, we're receiving a priority transmission from Zephyrian Command. They want to know why Scout Ship 7749 Gamma missed its scheduled check-in. Sarah looked at the unconscious alien crew members secured in the ship's holding area. The Zephyrians would discover their missing scouts eventually, but every hour of delay gave humanity more time to prepare. Tell them we need 24 hours to analyze the captured data, she said. Then we're going to show the galaxy what happens when you underestimate the human species. Outside the stolen scout ship, the sun was setting over the Nevada desert, painting the sky in shades of red that reminded Sarah of the fires burning in cities across Earth. Tomorrow, the real war would begin. But tonight, for the first time since the invasion started, humanity had hope. The Zephyrians had made their greatest mistake. They'd given humans access to the stars. The galaxy's reckonings, 6 months after humanity's first taste of alien technology. The galaxy began to notice something was wrong. Admiral Chen Wei stood in the command center of humanity's most closely guarded secret, a fully operational starship built in the hidden shipyards beneath the Pacific Ocean. The vessel looked nothing like the elegant Zephorian designs. Where alien ships flowed like liquid metal, the human craft was angular and brutal, armored with salvaged materials and bristling with weapons that no galactic engineer would recognize. They called it the Defiance, and it represented everything humanity had learned about turning disadvantages into strengths. Final systems check complete, reported Captain Lisa Rodriguez from the bridge. She'd been a test pilot before the invasion, someone who specialized in making experimental aircraft do impossible things. Now she commanded a ship that could fold space-time and cross the galaxy in days instead of millennia. Sarah Chen monitored the vessel's stolen quantum drives from her position at the science station. 6 months of reverse engineering had taught humanity to modify Zephyrian technology in ways its creators never intended. Human computers, with their chaotic neural networks and nonlinear processing, could interface with alien systems in unpredictable ways that often produced superior results. Fold space calculations confirmed, Sarah reported. We're ready for our first interstellar flight. The target was Kepler Station, the Galactic Council's primary trade hub. Located 47 light-years from Earth, intelligence gathered from captured Zephyrian databases indicated it was lightly defended, considered too important and too remote for any primitive species to threaten. Perfect for humanity's debut on the galactic stage, Chen Wei activated the communication array that linked the Defiance to resistance cells across Earth. All teams, this is Angel Base. Operation Starfall begins in T-minus 60 seconds. Around the planet, hidden installations came alive with coordinated activity. Humanity had learned that the key to defeating a superior opponent was never to fight them on equal terms. Instead, they would fight everywhere at once, striking targets the Zephyrians never expected to defend. The plan was audacious in its scope. While the Defiance attacked Kepler Station, simultaneous strikes would hit Zephyrian installations across 3 star systems. Automated mining platforms would be sabotaged. Communication relays would be destroyed. Transport convoys would simply disappear without explanation. The aliens would wake up to discover that their carefully ordered galaxy had become a war zone overnight. Fold space drive engaged, Captain Rodriguez announced. See you on the other side. Space twisted around the Defiance, and suddenly the stars were different. Sarah felt her stomach lurch as the ship transitioned from Earth's local space to a region 47 light-years away in the span of a heartbeat. Through the viewscreen, Kepler station hung before them like a metallic flower, its docking arms extended to embrace the trade ships that kept galactic commerce flowing. Target acquired, Rodriguez said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were attempting. All weapon systems online. The human crew of 200 worked with the precision of a machine. They'd trained for this moment in simulators, built from captured alien technology, practicing until their responses became automatic. When the order came to open fire, there was no hesitation. The Defiance's weapons were crude by galactic standards, but they were devastatingly effective. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to near light speed punched through Kepler station's shields like they were made of paper. Electromagnetic pulse warheads disabled the station's defensive systems within seconds of impact. Nuclear charges, delivered by modified mining drones, turned entire sections of the structure into expanding clouds of radioactive debris. The attack lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, Kepler station was a crippled hulk drifting in space, its trade networks severed and its administrative centers destroyed. More importantly, the galaxy's most important commercial hub was now under human control. Sarah monitored the communication channels as news of the attack spread across the galactic network. The initial reports were confused, contradictory. Station commanders couldn't believe what their sensors were telling them. A single ship, using primitive technology, had conquered the most heavily defended civilian target in known space. Unknown vessel, this is Fleet Admiral Vorth of the Galactic Defense Force. Came a transmission from a approaching Zephyrian battlecruiser. You are in violation of 12 interstellar treaties. Surrender immediately or face destruction. Captain. Rodriguez opened a channel in response. This is Captain Lisa Rodriguez of the Earth vessel Defiance. I'm here to deliver a message from humanity to the Galactic Council. There was a long pause before the alien admiral replied, Earth, you're from the Resource Category 7 system. Former Resource Category 7 system, Rodriguez corrected. We've been promoted. The Battle of Kepler Station lasted 6 hours and changed galactic warfare forever. The Zephyrian battlecruiser was 3 times the size of the Defiance and equipped with weapons that could destroy planets. By every tactical assessment, the human ship should have been vaporized within minutes. Instead, Captain Rodriguez used the debris field from the destroyed station as cover, turning the battleground into a 3-dimensional maze where size became a disadvantage. The Defiance moved like a fighter aircraft, diving between wreckage and using the station's own defensive weapons against the Zephyrian ship. Asterisk. Human ingenuity had found ways to make alien technology exceed its original specifications. The Defiance's shields were powered by modified mining equipment that could channel energy in ways the designers never intended. Its weapons fired projectiles, made from compressed station debris, turning the battlefield itself into ammunition. When the battle ended, the Zephyrian cruiser was a floating tomb, and the Defiance was broadcasting humanity's declaration of independence across every communication channel in the galaxy. The message was simple. Earth was no longer available for mining. Any alien vessel entering human space would be considered an act of war. Humanity was claiming its place among the stars, and they would defend that claim against any who challenged it. The galactic response was swift but confused. How could a primitive species that had barely achieved spaceflight suddenly possess technology capable of defeating advanced military vessels? Emergency sessions were called across multiple systems, as various alien governments tried to understand what had happened. Sarah monitored their communications from the captured Kepler station, now serving as humanity's first extraterrestrial base. The aliens were asking all the wrong questions. They wanted to know where humans had acquired their technology, who was supplying them with weapons, which advanced civilization was using Earth as a proxy in some larger galactic conflict. None of them considered the possibility that humans had developed their capabilities independently, because that would mean admitting they'd underestimated a primitive species so completely that it threatened the foundation of galactic civilization. The Zephyrian High Command finally responded 3 weeks later, dispatching a fleet of 12 battlecruisers to reclaim Kepler station and demonstrate the consequences of defying galactic authority. They arrived to find the station apparently deserted, drifting dark and silent in space. Admiral Kethfer led the boarding party personally, confident that the humans had fled rather than face overwhelming force. His troops moved through the station's corridors with professional efficiency, expecting to find evidence of hasty evacuation and maybe a few stragglers to interrogate. Instead, they walked into the most sophisticated trap in military history. Humanity had spent 3 weeks turning Kepler station into a weapon. Every corridor was monitored by hidden sensors. Every room contained carefully placed charges. The station's own life support systems had been modified to serve as delivery mechanisms for various chemical and biological weapons reverse-engineered from captured Zephyrian equipment. When Admiral Kethfer triggered the trap by entering the station's command center, the entire structure became a death trap. Bulkheads sealed automatically, dividing the Zephyrian forces into isolated groups. Artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, sending armed soldiers tumbling through zero-G combat zones they'd never trained for. Atmospheric processors began venting toxic gases into specific sections while maintaining breathable air in others, forcing the invaders to choose between suffocation and retreat. The few Zephyrians who reached their ships alive brought word back to the fleet. Humans hadn't abandoned Kepler station. They'd weaponized it. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. 12 Zephyrian battlecruisers found themselves fighting not just human ships, but the station itself. Defensive platforms that had been dormant for decades suddenly came online, their targeting systems controlled by human technicians who had learned to think like the machines they operated. The Defiance led a fleet of smaller human vessels that shouldn't have existed. In the 6 months since capturing their first scout ship, humanity had built an entire space navy using a combination of alien technology and human manufacturing techniques. The ships were fast, deadly, and operated by crews who had grown up playing video games that simulated exactly this type of combat. Captain Rodriguez coordinated the human fleet from the bridge of the Defiance, treating the battle like the ultimate strategy game. Human ships darted between larger alien vessels, targeting specific systems with surgical precision. They didn't try to match the Zephyrians in firepower. Instead, they attacked weaknesses that the aliens didn't even know they had. When the last Zephyrian battlecruiser exploded in a cascade of light and debris, the galaxy finally understood what they were facing. Humanity wasn't just another primitive species that could be relocated or eliminated at will. They were something new, something dangerous, something that could take the tools of galactic civilization and use them in ways their creators never intended. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened on Zarian Prime, the oldest and most prestigious world in known space. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to address what the Zephyrians now called the human problem. Sarah watched the proceedings through hacked communication channels from her position aboard the Defiance. The aliens were terrified, though they tried to hide it behind diplomatic language and parliamentary procedure. For the first time in galactic history, a primitive species had not only resisted assimilation but had actively defeated the forces sent to subdue them. The humans must be contained, declared High Chancellor Zektar, the Zephyrian leader, who had originally authorized Earth's mining. They've shown themselves capable of rapid technological adaptation and aggressive expansion. If we don't act now, they could destabilize the entire galactic order. Other species weren't so sure. The Condorians, who had fought their own bitter war against Zephyrian expansion, quietly suggested that perhaps it was time to reconsider the policy of forced relocation. The Helix Collective, speaking through their quantum-linked ambassador, noted that humanity's rapid technological advancement might make them valuable allies rather than enemies. The debate continued for days, with various factions proposing everything from immediate military action to formal recognition of human independence. Meanwhile, Sarah and her team continued their work, using captured alien technology to monitor galactic communications and prepare for whatever decision the Council reached. The breakthrough came when Sarah detected something unexpected in the quantum communication networks. Humans were already out there, not just at Kepler Station, but scattered across dozens of systems, working quietly to establish humanity's presence in the galaxy. Some were refugees from the orbital bombardment who had escaped Earth on stolen ships. Others were volunteers who had taken captured alien vessels and set out to explore the stars. All of them carried the same message: humanity was not going away. The Galactic Council reached a decision on the 7th day of deliberations. Rather than risk a prolonged war against an unpredictable enemy, they would offer humanity formal recognition as a sovereign species with full rights to their home system and any territories they could legitimately claim. It wasn't surrender. Exactly, it was acknowledgement that the old galactic order had changed forever. Species could no longer be categorized simply as advanced or primitive. Humanity had proven that intelligence, creativity, and determination could overcome any technological disadvantage. Chen Wei read the formal treaty from the bridge of the Defiance as Earth celebrated humanity's victory. They had gone from a resource, Category 7 civilization, scheduled for mining, to a recognized galactic power in less than 2 years. The Zephyrians, who had once dismissed humans as insignificant, now spoke of them in the same breath as the galaxy's most advanced species. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with species and civilizations beyond human imagination. Some would become allies, others enemies. Many would challenge humanity's right to exist among the stars. That was fine. Humans had always done their best work when someone told them something was impossible. As the Defiance prepared for its journey back to Earth, Sarah looked out at the stars and smiled. The galaxy had spent millennia believing that superior technology guaranteed victory, that advanced civilizations could do whatever they wanted to primitive ones. Humanity had just proven them wrong. The stars were no longer silent to the human species. Now it was humanity's turn to make some noise. Asterisk.